Hello, everyone. This video is a part of series Understanding Auteur Films, based on 3-volume books of the same title. In this video we'll talk about High and Low by Akira Kurosawa. Except a brief introduction of the film, the video has 4 sections as follows. Ambiguity of title. Space and social division. The relativity of good and justice. A drama without music or catharsis. Now, let's begin. High and Low, 63. The early 1960s, when Akira Kurosawa's High and Low was produced, was a time when auteur cinema from Europe, such as France, Italy, and Sweden began to have a major influence on world cinema. Although there is no doubt that Kurosawa's direction is outstanding, some may feel that the overly orthodox style feels textbook-like and formal. However, despite their innovative expressions and artistic merits, many of the European auteur cinema during the same period are now being neglected. Perhaps due to low demand, there are many works that have not been made into software or distributed online. Considering the current trends in internationally acclaimed works in this field, maybe this shows a change in the standards by which general audiences, film fans, and critics evaluate auteur films themselves. Personally, I also appreciate the artistry of Alain René Muriel and Ingmar Bergman's Silence, both of which were created around the same time. But, I don't think that they would have a stronger appeal to today's audiences than High and Low. Kurosawa's film has remained surprisingly timeless, not just from the perspective of my personal aesthetic preference, but from the perspective of how relevant they might be to audiences in the 2020s, especially when you consider the fact that it was released during a different period of high economic growth, the year before the 1964 Tokyo Olympics. High and Low is a work that masterfully completed the art of traditional feature filmmaking, keeping a balance between artistry and entertainment within the framework of a commercial film. Director Akira Kurosawa does not rely on boring music or explanatory narration like in Hollywood entertainment films but uses only the clever script and tense direction to maintain the 2-hour and 23-minute long running time. It is highly complete as a genre film, and can be viewed as a crime film, social drama, suspense drama, etc. However, this film is not only an entertaining genre film, it also has something that appeals to modern audiences. Ambiguity of title. This film is based on Ed McBain's police novel, King's Ransom, part of the 87th Precinct series. However, the main character in the film is not a police officer. It is clear that the main character is Gondo, the managing director of National Shoes, played by Toshiro Mifune, as the film begins with his appearance and ends with him meeting the kidnapper, Takeuchi. The story begins with the independent actions of Gondo and Takeuchi, and follows their actions, which are connected only through indirect contact through police investigations and newspaper reports. And when Takeuchi is arrested by the police and a newspaper report about his death sentence is shown, the story as a suspenseful crime film is effectively over. However, from a dramatic point of view, their conversation in the final scene is the true ending. In other words, if there is something that appeals to the audience beyond the framework of a genre film, it is the drama about the two characters, Gondo and Takeuchi, which is exposed as a result of a kidnapping incident. And this drama is about division or disconnection. High and Low is engraved with the decisive division between the nouveau riche, wealthy class that has appeared in Japanese society due to rapid economic growth, and the unfortunate people at the bottom of society who harbor growing resentments. Most viewers will intuitively understand that the film's title, the original Japanese title, Tengaku to Jigaku, means heaven and hell, suggests the contrasting upper strata and bottom strata of society. However, if you watch the drama closely, you will find that this is not necessarily the case. In recent years, the word division has often been used in connection with the tendency for social classes to become fixed and hereditary. However, it would be a lie to say that this was not the case in Japan during its period of high economic growth. Gondo is a well-liked and conscientious company executive working at the production site, having a chauffeur and a luxurious mansion with air conditioning and heating, and Takeuchi is a former medical student, an intern who lives alone in a cheap apartment, unpaid under the system at the time. Originally, Takeuchi had no contact with Gondo. For the former, who is intelligent enough to pass the entrance exam and graduate from medical school, the elegant Gondo residence on the hill was a symbol of division that he cannot ignore, no matter how hard he tries. However, this becomes clear only in the final scene when he meets Gondo in prison after he has been sentenced to death. At the beginning of the film, the audience knows that Gondo joined National Shoes as an apprentice at the age of 16. But when we know the fact that it was based on his wealthy wife's dowry, his career as a self-made man is almost invalidated. Even if it's true that he has lived for 30 years thinking about making good shoes, it would be naive to think that his experience at a shoe factory and personality were enough for him to be promoted to managing director. In business, assets matter, and the wealthy wife's family is likely to have many connections. On the other hand, little is revealed about Takeuchi, the man who tried to kidnap Gondo's son, until the final scene, except that he is an intern in his late 20s living in a cramped cheap apartment. Towards the end of the story, Takeuchi meets Gondo on the street just once before he is arrested, and Gondo gives him a light for cigarette. Gondo has no idea that the man wearing sunglasses is the kidnapper, and even when he meets Takeuchi in the final scene, he does not realize that they have met once before. The story is almost always told from the viewpoint of Gondo and the detectives who sympathize with him, and Takeuchi is only portrayed as a vicious intelligent criminal with an abnormal hatred for him. Only about 5.5 minutes of the 2-hour and 23-minute running time is given to Takeuchi to reveal his inner self. However, even in that final scene, Takeuchi hardly talks about his personal life. The reason why he began to hate Gondo was because he lived in a 3-tatami room facing north, which is too hot in the summer to sleep, and too cold to sleep in the winter according to him, and looked up at the mansion every day. Takeuchi talks big, saying, "It's quite interesting for unhappy people to make happy people unhappy." When Gondo asks, "Are you that unhappy?" he is a little upset, but insists, "I don't want your sympathy now hearing my talk about how unhappy I was." The audience can sense Takeuchi's loneliness and despair from his words and gestures, as he desperately tries to hide the fear of facing the death penalty, his hands trembling. At the beginning of the meeting, Takeuchi asks Gondo about his current situation. He probably wanted to know the loss he had caused to Gondo and to take it as a souvenir to the underworld. The audience had seen the Gondo family's furniture being foreclosed just before this, so would expect him to be in difficulty. However, Gondo replies, "I'm still making shoes. Since I was entrusted with the management of a small company, I am working hard to grow it into a company that can compete with National Shoes." It's just a line, but from an objective point of view, it can be said that Gondo is extremely lucky that he was able to get the same job and position immediately after being kicked out of the company for which he worked for many years. Instead of making Gondo a happy person, unhappy and feeling himself gratified, Takeuchi's actions that resulted in giving himself a death sentence only gave the other person a new goal in life. Despite his carefully planned crimes, Gondo did not lose his happy family life or his fulfilling job. Takeuchi tries to hide his weakness to Gondo, saying that he is not afraid of dying or going to hell because he has been used to a life like hell since he was born, but soon after that, he betrays his words. He suffers from mental breakdown due to fear of death and despair. He must be experiencing the pain of hell. Looking at it this way, the title, High and Low, seems to suggest not only social division, but also innate selection due to the factor of luck. Gondo is a lucky guy whose sincere efforts have been rewarded with happiness, and he overcomes adversity quite easily. Takeuchi was forced to see Gondo's happiness without ever being rewarded, and he fell morally and was destroyed. If you say that the lucky Gondo goes to heaven and the unlucky Takeuchi goes to hell, as their destinations were decided from the moment of their birth, then this is actually a completely hopeless story. Space and social division. From what I said in the earlier section, it is tempting to think of High and Low as a fatalistic social drama. If we were to summarize the drama of this work in that way, we would say that it is a very boring story. But within the framework of realism, the story is brought to life by the images until near the end. It can be said that the strength of High and Low as a film lies in the fact that it shows the story without raising any doubts. The reality of images I'm talking about here above all concerns space. The movie is set in Yokohama in the early 1960s, but the story could have taken place in any major city, and the setting of a mansion on a hill overlooking a slum could also be used in non-contemporary dramas. It has a universality that can be applied even outside realism. The physical division between the haves and the have-nots based on where they live, and the spiritual disconnect caused by it, is something that has been burdened by humanity since ancient times. This is reflected in the words uptown and downtown that we often use casually. This deep-rooted problem is translated into clear visual imagery in High and Low. The interior of the Gondo residence is a large space, where 3 to 4 or more characters move around leisurely in full shots. On the other hand, the entirety of the apartment where Takeuchi lives is never shown. As if to emphasize that his room is cramped even for him living alone, he is never shown there other than in close-ups and in bust shots, let alone his whole body. The entire city can be seen from the Gondo residence, but from the window of Takeuchi's apartment, the only thing clearly visible is the Gondo residence, which stands alone on a sunny hill. There is no television in this small room, and the only news about the outside world comes from newspapers and the radio. In other words, division is above all a visible spatial one. The haves can view society from a prominent position, while the have-nots have no choice but to peek specific individuals in the upper echelons of society from below. Speaking of a 3-tatami room, it is smaller than a tea room and not much different from a prison cell. Having only one window is probably inevitable due to the design of such a narrow wooden rental house, so even though Takeuchi doesn't like it, he can't help but see it. If the north-facing windows are covered, there is no ventilation and no wind, so the living condition in summer must be the worst. In fact, in the first episode he appears, he enters the room and at once looks out the window. As I pointed out in the previous section, he had enough intelligence to graduate from medical school, and he must have known that the difference in circumstances between himself and Gondo was not due to a difference in effort or talent. He must have also understood that complaining about bad luck is no good. However, the living space that he saw every day showed him the unfairness of his life so overwhelmingly that it paralyzed his rationality. In the final scene, Gondo asks Takeuchi why he considers them to be polar extremes that hate each other. And Takeuchi's answer to that question holds allusions to exactly the divided space and to the visualization of the injustice brought about by the structure of that space. As Takeuchi looks up at Gondo's house, which looks like heaven from his room, every day, he gradually begins to hate Gondo, and in the end he says, that hatred has become like the purpose of living. He probably doesn't have any other explanation for himself. This is a part of the video released at patreon.com. To watch a full version of this video, please visit patreon.com and join the membership of the author's page. You can watch exclusive 3 new video about world cinema every month, plus some more videos, i.e. recordings of authors' public lectures etc., only for $2 a month. Your support is very important for our work.